Hello, welcome back to Movie Husbands. Today we'll be reviewing The Taste of Things. Cook Eugenie and her boss Dodin have grown fond of one another over the past 20 years, and their romance continues to rise to dishes that impress the world's most illustrious chefs. When Dodin is faced with Eugenie's reluctance to commit, he begins to cook for her. The film is directed by Tran Anh Hong and stars Juliette Binoche and Benoît Magimel. So Matt, what did you think of The Taste of Things?
So I'm sure you were very much happy to see Benoît.
Benoît Magimel?
Yes.
For my darling Pacifiction.
For his darling Pacifiction.
So I just want to say it's not like Pacifiction introduced me to Benoît Magimel. He's like the Brad Pitt of French cinema. He's in all these French movies. You ever see The Piano Teacher? I don't think so. It's an amazing film. He's so good in it, and it rocked my world for weeks and made me feel awful. Anyway, I love Benoît Magimel. I also love Juliette Binoche.
Yeah, so French A-list involved in this movie. It is very much an ode to French cooking and cuisine. Mm-hmm. You have this head of the household in this beautiful, luxurious castle who is played by Benoît, and Juliette, who plays the chef that works there, but they seem to be also interconnected by this relationship. He is trying to marry her, and he's been trying for a while, it seems, as he keeps bringing this question up and she keeps declining. That is almost a smaller aspect of the movie. I know you mentioned that in the narrative in the intro, but this film is really centered around cooking and cuisine. The film is really highlighting the laborious process of making these stocks, these sauces, and the layering of all these flavors into these wonderful looking, mouth-watering, savory dishes. We were remarking during the film how hungry this film was making us because of how beautiful and delicious everything looked. Pairing this process with a love story in a way is really meant to equate these two things, and that food is love. Yeah. And I think that's what the film is ultimately about. We get to see multiple scenes where not only is the cooking happening, but people are savoring this food. So they're just sitting there tasting this food and going through it. It seemed very comforting and lived in with the hectic pace that a kitchen could have. There's a lot of things happening at once, but this felt like a very much like a fly on the wall setting of visually seeing these people walking throughout the kitchen and equate to some of those beautifully drawn scenes in the movie.
Think about this film as compared to like something like The Bear. We really like The Bear, right? That's also a show that's about fine dining and about producing great food. Think about how subtle this film is, about how languid the pace is, about how it finds itself in the process. I think so much so than The Bear does. The Bear finds itself in anxiety. This film is relishing in the process, and I really identify with that and love that.
And relishing in the comfort of that process.
Completely. I mean, I use the word elegant a lot when we talk about film, and I think, like, is there a film that's more deserving of that than this film? It's just so sumptuously photographed. It's so majestic in its ambitions. I don't want to undermine the film in any way, but it's so classically composed. Its concerns are so simple, but it's such like a subtle and affecting love story between these two people who are completely miraculous chefs, but much of the film's allure, frankly, lies in the miracle of gastronomy and of cooking.
Yeah, this is one of those films that you're not going to find a lot of subtext in. Everything is very much right there for you. The narrative is really to the point, and I think that's what makes it really nice and a compliment to the film itself. It could seem to maybe some people that the film is very slight in that regard.
I will admit I'm one of those people that found it to be kind of slight. I think sometimes I can look for grandiose statements and think that's the be-all, end-all of film, and I think this film was a really lovely reminder that you don't always need to do that. Because this film takes place in the 1800s, we see the origins and these old-fashioned methods of creating some really classic French dishes like pot de fou or vol au vent. Even the first 45 minutes of the film is this leisurely paced tour through this gigantic meal, right? What the film gets right about gastronomy is also something I see about the film's pacing itself, is that great culinary arts is partly about the recipe, but also using established techniques and partly instinctual type of innovation in matching flavor opposites. So in a way, the film is exploring how the culinary arts is a meeting of art and science in that way. And you'll have many shifts that lead in this way or lead another way, but there's always a push and pull between those opposites in culinary arts. You see that this film, even with its pace, is a very stop and smell the roses type of atmosphere through its improvisation. Or knowing what we know about filmmaking, these scenes seem more rigorously planned than we imagine on screen. They seem improvised, but they're clearly not.
Yeah.
there's almost a relaxing quality to watching such a detailed process bit by bit. I know this is a strange example, but there are these like trends of TikToks to watch people just doing their routine at night. This is very similar to that, but in a very luxurious fashion for fantastic food.
Yeah, I was actually just going to say that because I watch a lot of gardening YouTube videos.
Yep.
One of them is Garden Answer on YouTube, and she does just that. It's not cut with much grandiosity. It's really just following her as she's going through all her chores of taking care of her cut flower garden and her vegetable garden and doing things in the winter within her greenhouse. All these things feel very like gentle and nice and very lived in a very simplistic way, which is something I really did enjoy about the film. What would be very interesting is because we're from the USA, I would really be interested if we have any French viewers to talk a little bit about the details in this film, because I think there are some things that they will relate with that we will not understand at all culturally. There were some things in the film we did relate to, like we have been to Avion.
Avion? Yeah, and they talked about Avion.
There was a lady on the plane who had to correct us on the pronunciation multiple times when we went there.
Yeah.
But I would not have understood that and that reference had I not been there.
We are also great lovers of French wine.
Yes.
So as the film is going on, they're talking about the wonders of Burgundy in these various villages.
Chateauneuf-du-Pape.
Chateauneuf-du-Pape is in Rhone, but Chamboulay, which is in Burgundy, we were like eating this up. I said in my Letterboxd review, like I would murder for a glass of Pommard right now.
Which is what we did. We came home and we opened a bottle of wine.
Yeah, we opened a bottle of wine the second,
like 9:30
the second we got home. And by the way, we ate dinner on the way to the film, watched the film, and left starving. Just absolutely starving.
But basically, my point is, if we understood those very few details about the movie, there were so many other references that I didn't understand that I would very much love to be illuminated on if we have any French viewers.
I'm going to put you on the spot for a second.
Okay.
What did you think of the cinematography overall? Talk to me about it.
Oh, I am a little conflicted with the cinematography.
Me too.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, this is why I asked. Okay, so I thought the light was absolutely gorgeous in this film. Like a lot of natural light, natural gardens, but I got really distracted by the camera movements.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
So
We're on the
glad.
same page.
No, I'm so
I have
glad
like
you
a whole
feel this
note
way.
section about
because
this.
I think the film really could have benefited from more stillness. It worked a lot better for me in the outdoor scenes. There's this amazing scene at a long table where they're celebrating their matrimony. I thought that was amazing. There's a scene after that that's baked in this this natural golden light of them walking by the lake. I thought that was gorgeous. Those wide open spaces are great, but some of the interior scenes, especially in the first 45 minutes, it feels like the camera is jumbling from like one area to another, and it's almost being shot in this handheld way that reminds me of like Paul Greengrass.
Yeah.
I didn't like that at all. I thought the film could have benefited from all of the stillness and frankly like all of the enjoyment that is in French cooking that really counteracted all of the process to me.
I have an interesting take on this, I guess I would say. I feel like not so much of it is at fault with the cinematography than is at fault with the editor. And I noticed this a lot in that intro cooking scene that happened, because there are moments where it was one take and it was just grazing from person to person as they were doing work in the kitchen. I thought that was some of the best moments in that scene. However, the problem came to be when they would cut. I found the cuts to be very disorienting and almost like a jump cut in a fashion that made it seem like we were jumping from a different location in the kitchen to another. That was very jarring for me.
It interrupted the fluidity of cooking.
It's funny that we were on the same page with that.
I know. I was watching the film and I was so into it. And this first 45 minutes, I'm just like, why is this camera moving so much? Like, this is a Cloverfield level of this camera moving, and I just didn't understand it. This is a little tidbit, but great monologues about the seasons. Kind of a strange.
I love that little part.
Yeah, I love that little bit too. Like, we're both food lovers. You keep a vegetable garden in the summer, so our cuisine certainly matches the seasons. And I always find myself looking forward to the bounty that the seasons have to offer us. I love stews in the winter, and I love like very light summer dishes in the summer. And it's kind of used as this extended metaphor for the characters because they keep talking about how they're in the autumn of their lives, meaning they're approaching the winter, which I guess in this metaphor means their old age. So they're in the autumn of their lives, and it's kind of their last chance to be able to find love in their lives, which I found really beautiful. But anyway, the way that the film uses seasons to talk about not only love, but about cooking, I really identified with. I want to mention, too, that really terrific performances by Benoît Magimel and Juliette Binoche. As the film unfolds in the second half to show their love story, the script really doesn't give them a lot, which is interesting. Not meaning that the script is poor, but a lot is put on their performances to deliver a shared history that the film doesn't necessarily give us. And I thought the romance's potency approached like breathlessness at times. Not a lot, but the final scene for sure, and some of the more melancholic scenes towards the end. Magimel, he has this way of taking beats or like pauses in the middle of his sentences. It has this quality that I find mannered, but also like very realistic. It keeps me engaged in dialogue that I might otherwise not be engaged with.
On that note, I want to highlight, and I apologize if I'm pronouncing her name incorrectly, Bonnie Chanou Reverie. She plays Pauline in the film, and she comes in, pretty much she bookends the film at the beginning and at the end of the film. She is this girl that is looking to study under Eugenie and learn about cooking, and she has a lot of promise to her. She is bookending the film in a way that really highlights in a way like new life and new birth. I really enjoyed her performance. She has these wonderful close-ups that just show the sincerity in her facial features and her reactions. It's funny how so much of this film is the reactions of people just tasting food.
Anyone who watches YouTube Cooks or Chopped or whatever, you could watch this film, no problem.
Yeah.
It may be in French, but like if you love food, you could watch this movie without an issue.
Yeah, but she brought this wonderful depth to the film that I really enjoyed.
So you ready to go to grades?
I am ready to go to grades. I give The Taste of Things a B. I found it to be a very lovely film about French cuisine and cooking. It's funny how it's like not telling you how these things are done, but it's showing you, and you also kind of learn something in that regard. Just the way that flavors are being layered, like they cook the meat with vegetables just to bring the aromas to the meat, but then they just discard the vegetables. It's like a lot of the process that goes into it. You learn a little bit, which is kind of cool.
I agree. I give the film a B as well. I think they're looking at the film or in the characters as very mysterious. You can kind of fill in the blanks of why they are the way they are. So I think it's a lot more intentional. And frankly, I think it's better crafted. At the same time, I did find myself wanting more from this film. And I found it so lovely. I literally could watch people cook great food all day long. It's funny. It's a very classical French film. It's very classical about the way that it looks at characters. It's very classical about the way that it looks at food. We didn't talk about this. It's really interesting that this was picked over Anatomy of a Fall.
Yeah.
Anatomy of a Fall is a much more modern film. Frankly, I think it's a film that is better written in some ways and also is a film that could have more widespread appeal.
Yeah.
It's lovely, but I'm not sure why it was picked.
It seems like it was catering to what French people would love, maybe in a certain way.
I can understand as a French person if you're saying, I want my culture to be represented in this way when I go to the Oscars.
Exactly.
I kind of understand that, but at the same time, I think we have to look at what's the best film.
Yeah, especially when you have all these films from all these different countries competing, you have to think beyond just what is going to please our own populace, I guess.
Yeah, but all things considered, I really thought the performances were wonderful. I think there's so many things to like about it. It's a film that has very slight ambition, so it's hard for it to like plant itself in your memory with ambitions like that. So that's it for a review of The Taste of Things, which is now playing in theaters. Please go see it and let us know what you think of the film, certainly in the comments section below, and we will see you next time.